What's up, everyone? I'm Veronica. I'm the founder of the Dunedin Wellness Collective, and I'm here today with Geodie Padgett. I'm really excited to introduce you guys to Geodie. So, Geodie is a spiritual consultant and coach with over 40 years of experience, and she teaches other people how to connect with and utilize their own inner guidance system. She uses tools like tarot, astrology, mediumship, and psychic development. And so actually, Jody has a couple of programs coming up, a tarot certification and spiritual mentorship program coming up. So make sure to stick around to the end of the short video to hear all the details about that. So I actually had the pleasure of receiving a tarot reading with Jody recently, and it really stood out to me. So I've gotten a lot of tarot readings before in the past. But so not only Jody was your message was spot on, but the way that you delivered the messages, it just made me feel really empowered. It made me feel optimistic about the future. It made me feel like, you know what, I've got this. I'm in the right place and I can do this. And that's such an important piece of the puzzle because that's what gets you to take the action steps that you need to take. So, if anybody is looking for a tarot reading, I would highly recommend Jody. So, and we'll let you know how to contact her by the end of the interview. So, Jody, I would love for you to tell us how you first discovered your spiritual gifts. What brought you into this work?
This is a lifelong thing. I was born psychic and a medium. And so I didn't know anything was different for a long time until I got to about middle school age and started to realize not everybody does the same thing I do. And of course, at middle school, when you're all this self-conscious and stuff like that, I was like, okay, I'll just kind of keep it cool. And instead, what I did was start going to the library back in the days where everybody went to libraries and getting books and reading and reading and reading. And the universe works in interesting ways because, of course, once I started that, people started coming into my life and, um, guiding me, whether I was aware of it or not, in this direction. And finally, I started to realize what I did. I finally got to the point where, I felt my abilities were at a point that I could actually help people, which is what I realized this was all about.
Yeah. So you started in middle school, is that what you're saying?
I started really learning about it in middle school.
Okay.
I mean, it had happened before. I was constantly seeing spirits in the house growing up, both human and animal. And, my parents would just like, well, you just had a dream. And I'm like,
Mm,
okay, you over there, just shut up so I can go to sleep kind of thing.
yeah.
It was that kind of an experience. And it's like, I didn't know how to explain it to them. They didn't really completely understand, but I was like, okay, I will just keep going as I'm going, and somehow this will all make sense. And it did. Eventually, it really did make sense, and realized it was more than making sense. This was part of a mission, part of a purpose in life.
Yeah. So you were forced to kind of figure out what to do with your gifts. You didn't
Yes.
have a choice. So
Yeah.
can you tell us what can somebody expect when they're working with you one on one?
Yeah. I often joke that my job has now become to work myself out of a job. Because
Mhm.
what I really want is to bring clarity to people, which can lead to more confidence and self trust, you know, and then ultimately have the practical guidance to move forward. Those are the things that are important. And the more I'm able to work with somebody with that, the more they're able to do that on their own. I don't want anybody becoming dependent on my services. Yes, I have clients I love and I love to see them again and again and again, but I don't want them to be dependent. I want them to be able to figure out what they can figure out on their own with their own intuitive abilities. And we all get to a point sometimes where those aren't enough. If we're really emotionally tied to some outcome or something like that, yeah, that's when go see a psychic, a tarot reader, or somebody like that to help give, greater clarity.
Yeah. So, and I will say that you're really good at the teaching part of it. I also got to experience some of that. You taught me how to connect with, get messages through tarot cards. Okay, so I bought a like a learner tarot card deck maybe 4 years ago, and I do the little cheat thing where it says on the top what when you pull the card what it's supposed to mean. And when we were working together, you were like, don't pay attention to that, just feel into it. However it is that you were teaching me how to do it, I literally this was such a cool experience. I could see it was almost like the card was alive in front of me, like it was moving. The clouds were like moving, and I just knew what the message was. So the way that you are teaching people how to connect with their own intuition is very cool. I would love for you to tell us about, you have two programs coming up. Do you want to tell us about those?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this, being my 40th year, I'm still kind of in shock over that. Have decided to, first of all, I have some specials that I'm running right now to celebrate that, because this is actually the month that it's happening. And I decided I would run it through the month of August up till my birthday in September, which is September 10th. And basically, I'm offering a couple of things. There are readings, $99 for 45 minutes. And also, you can try a mentorship with me for what my typical price of a reading is for, a couple of different sessions for a month for $199. And then right before my birthday, I start my next cohort of tarot certification students. This is a three-tiered process using kind of my own proprietary three-tiered method. And it allows for some of the things that you experienced when you and I got to have a day of play, I like to call it. And that's coming up that first full week after Labor Day, basically. So.
And what's involved in that program? What are people going to be learning about that they can
Well,
take away?
there are three different tiers. And the first tier is really learning more about how to work with the cards,
Mhm.
how to be able to get those messages like you did. It advances and you learn more about structured conversations with cards, how to bring your own intuition in it when you're working with a client. And all through the process, we work on connecting with spirit. That's a key part. So you learn how to work with your intuition through tarot.
Okay. So will we be learning how to do tarot readings for other people, or is it more
Yes,
focused on
that's
learning how to guide?
both.
Yeah.
Both, because we all have different purposes for learning it. It is a great tool for understanding who we are. It
Mhm.
is one of the best tools for that. And it's often, to be honest, it's often not used that way. So that's an important distinction, because when we have that information available, and by the way, spirit wants to communicate with us. That's a really important thing. So
Mhm.
yes, we will be learning how to work with it for ourselves and ultimately to work with someone else as well.
Okay. So what are you connecting? I remember when we were doing a session together, you mentioned that you connect on three different levels to get information. Can you tell us a
Mhm.
little bit more about that?
Yeah. As I said, the first level is more about learning the cards and understanding the process. The
Mhm.
second level is really bringing in the intuitive piece to the equation and how that works with someone else, how that works with your own intuition. And the third piece of it is really how we're actually connecting with spirit to get those messages that come from, beyond ourselves.
Mhm. And what would you say? This is something that you've been doing for a long time. You've been helping a lot of people, and with all those
Yeah.
people, and you've seen what it does for people. What are the top benefits of doing this work?
I think the biggest benefit is that it opens them up to understanding their own intuition
Hmm.
and that they can trust themselves. So they make better decisions. They handle challenges more effectively. All of, things like that. Those things in life that we often face that we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And it really opens the door to, hey, I can take care of this. I know how to sit with myself, sit with my intuition, and allow spirit to let me know, hey, this is a good way to go. This would not be a good way to go, kind of thing.
That is such an important. piece of the puzzle. You know, we're all just trying to figure out our way through life, but having that feeling, and I think that's why I got such a feeling of, just like you said, it's empowering, right? Just
Yeah.
a feeling of empowerment, like, you know what, I can figure out what to do and not feeling like I'm alone either. I'm being guided by spirit. Um, so yeah, I really appreciate that. That's amazing. So, okay, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they go? Where can people find you? And by the way, we're going to be putting all the links to connect with you in the description, in the comments.
Sure.
But what's the easiest way if they want to contact you and find out more information?
The easiest way is probably to go to my website, roseclaire.net,
Okay.
and just go to the contact page, and send it to me. You can also send me an email directly, roseclaire170 @gmail. That's another way.
Okay.
I also even take text on my business phone, 727-201-3423. I always mess up those last four numbers.
Perfect. And Rose Claire is your business name, right?
It is,
And
yeah.
it means, can you tell us the name, what the significance of that is?
It's really funny because originally it was kind of a combination of family and history.
Mhm.
And later I kind of realized, wow, this is really what I do. Because rose is a spirit symbol of love for me personally.
Mhm.
And clair means working with clarity, means understanding what we call the clairs in intuition as well.
Mm.
So I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Love clarity.
The clairs meaning, for people who don't know about that. Can you,
Clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairgustance, and I know I'm missing one or two, but there are a
okay.
lot of them. But they basically touch our senses and how we work with our senses.
As a way of connecting to spirit and guidance.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool. And that you're going to be teaching that in your upcoming classes, right?
I do that a lot of times in my mentorship. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, where we work with it. Definitely.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you. I appreciate
It's
it.
been a pleasure, and we will see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Bye, everyone.